Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth Voss. I am Editor-in-Chief of Disobedient Media, and I am here to bring you a few of our articles, one in each stream, that I will read because I know that a lot of people are busy and a lot of people don't have time to read all of the articles that we produce, but what we cover is important. So the next article that I have to read is called After Freezing Temperatures Subside, American Homeless Are Still Left Out in the Cold. I published this about a week ago. And I'm just going to get straight into it. This is not meant to be an analysis stream. This is not meant to be commentary. This is just simply to provide our articles to people that would rather listen than read them. Okay, so getting started. With the recent cold snap that hit large portions of the United States finally eased, the pressing issue of American homelessness shows no sign of abating. The sudden drop in temperature revealed the troubling inability, especially in southern states, to help homeless populations in extreme temperatures. It also shed light on the widespread epidemic of homelessness in America, with a shockingly large portion of this population unable to afford housing despite working long hours. Disobedient Media spoke with a volunteer who works with homeless populations who explained the demeaning contradiction that they are forced to live. Reuters wrote of the recent freeze's deadly effects. The cold snap has been blamed for the death of at least 3 homeless men in Texas, North Carolina, and North Carolina, according to officials and local news media. It has provided a vivid illustration of a nationwide problem as homelessness in the United States rose in 2017 for the first time in 7 years. Reuters went on to add that according to federal survey data released last month, 553,742 people in the U.S. lacked homes on any given night in 2017, while several metropolitan centers, including New York City, have seen even more dramatic spikes in homeless numbers. Local press in states affected by the unusually frigid conditions, including Alabama, reported that homelessness advocates criticized the shortfalls of local government and church responses to the sudden drop in temperature. Meg Tilden said that more Huntsville churches should have stepped up and opened warming centers. They should not have to have a contract with the city to do that, said Tilden. Jesus does not have a contract, is what she said. A Chicago resident who provided overnight cots to the homeless in his basement during the cold snap was also threatened with condemnation of his home for allegedly violating sleeping regulations. NBC reported that during the sub-zero conditions, the Chicago man had the idea to host overnight slumber parties for the homeless, but that officials said there are sleeping regulations for basements and Schiller's basement does not meet those requirements. Homelessness is an escalating problem in the U.S. regardless of weather conditions, including an increasing number of Americans who cannot afford housing despite working full-time jobs. Outlets like the New York Post relate that hundreds of full-time New York City workers are homeless, while a report by NBC documented the general issue of homelessness among the employed. And I highlighted this quote. The Kennard family of 5 from Johnson City, Tennessee, is homeless. Perhaps the most surprising thing about the Kennards is that despite their homelessness, they are still a working family. For the last 7 years, Patrick Kennard has worked a full-time job with benefits at a bank call center, and until recently, Cindy Kennard worked as a director of a daycare facility. NBC's report continued, it's hard sometimes for people to appreciate. They're so used to the stereotyped homeless populations, the visible homeless, if you will, who live outdoors and they're not aware that there are literally hundreds of thousands of people, many of them working, who are homeless as well, said Dennis Culhane, a University of Pennsylvania social policy professor whose research focuses on homelessness. Adjunct professors have also faced increased difficulty in affording housing. The Guardian reported that some adjunct professors in the U.S. chose to engage in prostitution to make ends meet. They wrote, The Guardian illustrated the extreme lengths that many adjuncts are forced to endure, with sex work one of the more unusual ways that adjuncts have avoided living in poverty and perhaps even homelessness. They resort to food banks and goodwill, and there is even an adjunct's cookbook that shows how to turn items like beef scraps, chicken bones, and orange peels into meals. The Guardian continued, homelessness is a genuine prospect for adjuncts. When Ellen Tara James Penny finishes work teaching English composition and critical thinking at San Jose State University in Silicon Valley, her husband Jim picks her up. They have dinner and drive to a local church where Jim pitches a tent by the car and sleeps there with one of their rescue dogs. In the car, James Penny puts the car seats down and sleeps with another dog. She grades papers using a headlamp. Other outlets, including PBS and Salon, have reported the appalling conditions in which adjuncts are forced to survive. PBS noted that adjuncts made up over half of all college and university faculties, while Salon cited the Chronicle of Higher Education description of professors with PhDs sleeping in homeless shelters. Poverty and homelessness have become such an endemic issue in the US that a United Nations representative recently visited Los Angeles to monitor the appalling conditions in locations including Los Angeles' infamous Skid Row. The Los Angeles Times reported that the trip was part of a national tour investigating human rights conditions, the human rights conditions of the poorest US citizens. The article further related that the event included witnessing a, quote, shirtless man who lay groaning across a wheelchair, a colostomy bag showing below his shorts hem. The monitor, Alston, stated, "I think it's on a scale that I hadn't anticipated. Block after block of people. When you see how concentrated it is, it's more shocking." The gut-wrenching scene in Skid Row is not the only horror faced by the homeless across the United States. Disobedient Media recently spoke with a volunteer who has worked with homeless shelters and related activists over a long period. Related activities over a long period. They told us of the demeaning rules faced by homeless who frequent these shelters, in addition to the huge prevalence of health and dental problems. The volunteer told Disobedient Media that many homeless individuals had such severe dental problems that volunteers were forced to make a concerted effort to fit menus around food which could be, quote, easily gummed. The volunteer told Disobedient Media, "I have to make food soft or small bites so they can eat it. Hard foods like apples are challenging." The volunteer added that homelessness is so traumatic that hypervigilance is constant. They said, "Among the homeless those at risk, I see a hypersensitization and vigilance resulting from their treatment at the hands of other people. No one talks about it." Most importantly, the volunteer explained to Disobedient Media that homeless populations face an unbearable catch-22, which often keeps them in poverty. They told us, quote, "The homeless are not allowed to get better. Getting better means getting tools, which including clothes, an unlocked Wi-Fi phone, as some shelters hand out for communication, and job hunting. Any sign of having these items must mean they're freeloaders. To avoid being viewed as a freeloader, the homeless are forced to remain desperate so they fit our view and expectation of what they are supposed to be. And it's still, quote, their fault because they're lazy for not getting better. It's an existence of contradiction. In the freezing weather that gripped the US in the last month, such double binds are not only demeaning, but deadly." And that's the end of that article, and thank you so much for listening. My name is Elizabeth Voss. You can find me at Elizabeth Lee, Lea Voss on Twitter, and you can also find Disobedient Media, obviously, at Disobedient News on Twitter. And please visit our website, disobedientmedia.com, where you can read all of these stories. Thank you so much. Have a great day.